Hello and welcome to the Virtual Mac User channel. This week we're going to talk about something which could be costing you thousands of dollars each month. We're going to talk about cleaning up FSLogix profiles, right? In customers' environments, I very rarely see this done, but it can be very expensive. I've seen in excess of 10 terabytes worth of data which has not been used in 6 months. And how do we clear that out? So that's what we're going to explore in today's video. Okay, so FSLogix profiles management is something which is key, something which everybody should be doing in their environment, but as I said, something which I see very rarely done. So if you run Azure Virtual Desktop or Citrix or anything which runs FSLogix profiles, then you want to carry on watching, because I could save you hundreds, thousands, potentially tens of thousands of dollars each month just by following the steps that we're just going to go through and see today. All right, so let's get going and enjoy today's video. Right, so when we talk about cost, what do we actually mean? What do we talk about the size of the file share? So just going to flick over into my Azure portal for a second, and then you'll see what I mean. All right, so this is my file share that I'm using for FSLogix, okay? And you can see here the provision storage is 500 gigabits, right? So the way that the pricing works for Azure Files Premium is that you pay for your provision storage, not what you use, but what you actually provision, right? So if I provision 10 terabytes, then I'm paying for 10 terabytes. But if I'm only using 1 terabyte, then you're wasting 9 terabytes worth of data. And that can get pretty expensive, right? So I worked out the cost of it. And if you're using a 10 terabyte volume, which should accommodate around 1,000 users with 3 gigabits profile, that's going to cost about $1,500 a month. Okay, so if you can imagine that maybe only 100 users of those active, maybe the rest of the users have left the company, that's literally $1,500 on the line that we're paying for. We want to make sure that we're using the minimum amount of storage that we need to, right? And in today's video, that's what we're going to go through and show you. Okay, so first of all, we'll hopefully take this 500 gigabits down to actually what we need to, and then we'll approach this from two levels. We'll approach it first from the storage account level, and second from the file share level, right? So we're going to go through and do that now. All right, so we're going to use Nerdio for a lot of this, by the way. You can do it natively, but for today's video, I'm going to focus on the Nerdio features which enable us to manage those FSLogix profiles, space and capacity, and therefore reduce the cost. All right, so let's now go into the Nerdio console, and I'll show you some of the capabilities that we can do from there. All right, so we're in the console, and you can see here I've got my FSLogix profiles storage account. So I'm using 492 gigs out of 500 gigabits. Okay, so what does that consist of? What is that data? So that data essentially is all the FSLogix profiles, right? So we just click on manage, we can go in there and see just the settings that we need. So we can see we've got premium in there. But what I'm going to do now is I'll just flick over and show you what that data actually consists of, because that is the data that you would see in your FSLogix profile environment as well. So let's go and do that now. Okay, so I'm using storage account browser just to show you some stuff. So basically, this is the file share. Okay, so you can see there I've got my WD admin storage account, and then I've got that joined to Enter ID, and then I've got a file share called FSLogix, and that contains all of the FSLogix profiles. So what we can see here, we can see we've got a creation date, we've got a last modified, and a last write time. Okay, so these are all our users, right? So you can see there we've got Darth Vader. We've got some Star Wars characters in there, so obviously they use Azure Virtual Desktop on these Star Wars spaceships, and these are the individual folder profiles which FSLogix uses, right? So if we go into have a look at those, so let's see look at Darth Vader's FSLogix profile. So you can see there, and he's using his VHDX file, so that's the profile file which FSLogix creates, and you can see he's got a 5 gig profile. Right, so he's obviously been sending some emails and sending some Teams messages out and stuff. And then you can see here his profile creation time and the last modified date as well, and the last write time. So you can see this guy, his last write time was like in 2023, so he's not been around for a few years. Maybe he's off on a mission or something, I don't know. So fighting to save the world or attack people or something, I don't know. I'm not a Star Wars person, so I'm making a lot of this up. So yeah, so this is the type of scenario which you want to do. This is obviously my dev environment, so I try to modify the last modified time, which you can't do, but in a production environment, you'd see like the last modified time probably is the last write time. Okay, just think about this, maybe 2 years old or something, right? And so these are the type of profiles that we want to clear out, okay, because these are the ones which are costing us money. Okay, now how can we do that? So we could do it a couple of ways. So as I mentioned, I'm going to do this at the storage account level, and I'm also going to do it on an individual profile level as well. So how can we do this using Nerdio? So you can see here I've got autoscale turned off. Now for here I've got a 500 gig profile storage account. If I had this at 10 terabytes, for example, what Nerdio would do, it would actually reduce it down to the minimum, right? So I can go into here, I can enable auto scaling, so I'm going to flick that on, and then I've set it to relative or absolute. So I'm basically going to say the minimum size is 492 gig because that's the capacity that I'm using, and then plus 10 gig, right? So it's always going to keep 10 gig spare. So therefore it's worked out that I need 502. Okay, so let's just enable this and then just see what happens. So I'm just going to do this and then click save and close. So in theory, what's going to happen now is going to expand that storage account to 502 gigs, right? Because you can see I'm running up to the minimum. So this not just saves money, but enables you, it stops your storage accounts essentially from running out of capacity. So I'm just going to force the auto scale process so we can actually see that happening, and then you'll be able to see the process which is happening here. But reverse applies as well, right? So if I had 10 terabytes, which I'm paying like $1,500 a month for, it will reduce it down to 500 gig, right? So therefore you just save yourself potentially over $1,000 a month, right? So we can see there. So I can see there it's just scale out Azure File Share, and this is going to check constantly, right? So we're going to save some money there if I was using 10 terabytes, and you can see there it's actually expanded that to 502 to make sure. Now what we'll do is a bit later in the video we'll actually delete all those files and we'll do a cleanup, and then we'll actually see if we can see that go down as well. Okay, all right, so that's the storage account. Let's actually see how we can clear out some of the other profiles as well. All right, back in a sec. All right, so imagine a scenario where Han Solo's finally defeated Darth Vader, and we need to go and delete Darth Vader's FSLogix profile because he's no longer exists. So how do we do that? So let's go over to the console. So what we're going to do now is just going to go here. We are going to go delete FSLogix profiles, right? And then we get the option to select the users or search for the users, right? So I'm just going to go and search for Darth Vader 184. So we found the profile for Darth Vader 184. So you can see there, this is his profile. So I'm just going to select that profile, and we get the option to either delete it as well or archive it. So I can select that if I want to, but we know we're not going to need his data back. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go ahead and just delete his profile, right? So just going to go here, click OK, and there you can see that it's now gone and deleted that profile. Okay, so how do we know which people we want to delete? So what we can now do is recently release something called Insights for FSLogix profiles. So I can go to here, I can go to Azure Virtual Desktop, and now if we go into here, this screen is basically going to tell us which users have not used their profile in a while. We can also look at the different profile size. Now this is my dev environment. Obviously in a production environment you see more stuff in there as well. We can click on there and we can see all the profiles, and we can see like their last login details within there as well. And you can also search for all your different file shares. For example, I can do a search for Darth Vader. So you can see here he's got a couple of different profiles. There's just dummy data that I've been using for test purposes, and you can see there its profiles. So from there I could work out when he was last used these profiles, and then we can go in and delete that stuff from it as well. And it also shows the profile by size as well. So you can go in here and have a look and see, okay, how many profiles are up to 1 gigabit. Enables us to go in there and just see generally like how many profiles are bigger than 5 gigabits as well. So you can obviously search for your very large users who are eating up all your space. And then it also shows us the file share usage. I can see I've got 107 profiles on there, and it's showing me all the individual usage. And then we can see archive profiles and orphan profiles as well. Archive profiles are profiles which have been archived, and then we've got profiles as well. So you can go in here and see which profiles essentially don't match to a user account as well, right? So you can go and delete those off if you need to. So that basically tells you how you can go in and just have a high level overview of your profiles that you can then safely go and delete. Okay, so that's how you do it one by one, but how do you do it en masse? Maybe I want to delete all the profiles which have not been used in like older than 60 days, for example. How would I do that? Within Nerdio, we've got a Azure Runbook, which will basically show you all the profiles which are older than what you specify, and then it'll go and delete them if it sees that older than what you specify, right? So it's actually look at the last modified date as a VXD file. and it's called basically delete old FSLogix profiles. So literally all you have to do, you have to create a secure variable, which I'm not going to show you because that's got my storage account key in it, which then connects to storage account, and then you can basically run it on a schedule if you want to. Give it the storage account name, we give it the name, so you can see here. We can do days old, so that's the age of the profile, so I can put this to 90 days for example. And this is the secure variable which is pulling back, and then we've got what if, right? So for the testing I put that to true because I don't want to delete it. I'm going to show you something soon which will show you how to do this without using Nerdio because I want to be fair to everyone. So we can see here what if equals false, right? I will set that to true if I wanted to just test it. So I'm actually run that environment, so we just click cancel and I can see that it is running, so it's actually finished. So let's go and see what the actual output is. So you can see here it's just showing the output. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go and head over to my automation account, and then you'll be able to see what it's actually run. Okay, so if we just click refresh, we can see that's completed, and this is the actual, let me go to the output. So this is actually what it's running. So you can see there basically what it's doing, it's looking through all the files and folders and looking for VHD and VHDX files, right? So it's searching through the folders at the moment, and you can see here it's found a VHDX file. Right now, again, I can't show you how it's deleting them because I can't modify the last modified date, right? But if it saw one that was like older than 60 days, it would go and delete it. So what I normally recommend to people is you run this on a schedule to keep it going, right? So maybe you just want to clear out your profiles older than 90 days or 60 days or whatever your retention policy is. So maybe you need to keep that profile data. I've had that with a few customers. As you can see there, if it was deleted, it would actually go ahead and delete that. So it's pretty cool. It basically shows you what it's going to delete, and then if it finds anything, it will go ahead and delete it. So run this on the schedule, job done, and that'll keep your storage space. Now, if you match that as well with the Azure Files autoscaling, that means then the Azure File autoscaling will actually go and delete those profiles as well. So really useful tool. So this is how we do it en masse, and this is how we do it on a schedule basis as well. Okay. All right. So if you weren't using Nerdio, how would you tackle this? So just worked up a quick example of a script which would do a very similar thing, but obviously the downside is you had to run this manually, right? So rather than letting Nerdio run it automatically on the schedule, you have to run this every 6 months or a month or whatever. So basically what this script is doing is actually going through and just doing a very similar thing what we're doing with the automation account, when it's looking at the last modified date on the profiles, and then if it sees anything which is older than, I'd say, 180 days in this example, it will go and delete it out. There is options outside of Nerdio, just want to be fair to everyone, this is how you would do that. Right, so what I'm going to do now is we're going to just go ahead and delete all the profiles, right, and then we'll see the shrinking in action of the actual storage account back in a sec. Okay, so we've gone ahead and deleted all of our profiles, so we can see there we've now got used capacity which is 0, right? Obviously in a production environment you won't see that, but I've just gone and deleted all the profiles that I created. So what I'm going to do now is we're just going to run the auto scale, and then we're just going to see what happens to the shrink. So here we go, auto scale, full start. So that's now going to run, and it's basically going to look at the usage compared to what you've actually got provisions, and then if we see that we've got space that we're not using, then it's going to shrink down the storage account, and therefore saving you lots of money. All right, okay, so that's now run. So let's just see what the output of that is. So I'm just going to refresh that screen. So it's not actually shrunk it down, because you can see here the provision size quota can be decreased only 24 hours after the last quota increase. I'd have to wait 24 hours for this to happen, but yeah, it would shrink that down to 100 gig. Okay, all right, so let's close that one down. So yeah, that's pretty much it really. So as you can see here, what we've essentially done, we've shown you multiple ways that you can potentially save thousands of dollars per month just by keeping on top of your FSLogix profiles, right? Whether that means managing the actual storage account itself, or whether that means doing maintenance on the actual profile. So within Nerdio, we can go in and delete profiles for part of the joiners or leavers process, or we could just leave the automation task to run, which will then just go and automatically clear out the profiles if you'd run that task like once a month or something like that. So very easy to do. As I say, most customers who I speak to, they do this potentially once a year, or maybe some of them never. I've had a few occasions where I've saved literally tens of thousands of dollars with customers because they just don't delete the profile. They just never have done that. Definitely recommend a top tip to do that and to reduce the cost of your environment. All right, that's it from this week. If you find this useful, please let me know in the comment section. And yeah, I will see you next week for another video. All right, thanks, goodbye.